things I would focus on are the concepts, because the tools are going to change, right? You know that every 6 months we've got new large language. Gemini's the best. Next 2 months later, ChatGPT's the best. Next a month later, Claude's the best. There's always going to be another model, but the concepts behind them don't change. And so I like personally, because I'm a concept kind of guy, I like emphasizing those, because that's learning that you can take with you for the rest of your life. You didn't just learn how to like do something really cool with Gemini only to be out of date in 6 months. So it's
Yeah.
important. It's important to focus early, especially early on. It's important to focus on things that will have that will last. Knowledge that won't just last. Won't expire in 6 months. So I would focus on theory and try not. I mean, obviously play with the models, but don't get wed to any specific one, right? Because they're going to change. Each one's going to be good at different things, and it's good to just be flexible, because that landscape's always going to be changing.
It's true.
And so be prepared to move and change and adapt as needed. So that would be my recommendation is yeah, focus primarily on the theory, but use the models, but use all of them, and don't just specialize on one.
Yeah. And also, like when we are studying these concepts, and there is so much of material online. Like I started it in 2024, and when I started it, I started with the course from Andrew Ng,
Mm-hmm.
or the course at Stanford, the
Mm-hmm.
machine learning. And for me to grasp it at first was very difficult.
Yeah.
And similarly, when I went on to find so much information on internet, it became more and more difficult until and unless I streamlined it. So how should we set a deadline? Okay, this topic, and we set some deadlines so that we don't get lost
Yeah.
in the matter itself. So how do you actually visualize it? Like when you are learning something, how do you set your deadlines?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't usually set deadlines because I get sort of obsessed with it, and I
Okay.
can't sleep until I figured it out. And so I just have like this internal self motivation thing that kicks in and won't allow me to stop until I'm done. But yeah, I mean, one thing I would recommend is like, and you discovered with the Andrew Ng course, is not everybody's teaching style is going to be great for your learning style. And the way, and that's the case for me, especially, at least that's the way I feel. And so when I try to learn, I don't just depend on one resource. I look at as many resources as I can, and I try to find much variety as possible, so that I can see how different people would talk about it, because they don't often people just repeat other people, but sometimes you'll get different perspectives.
Yeah.
And if you keep looking, often I am able to find something that I can kind of relate to, or I can kind of learn from, or at least it gives me a start, gives me a toehold, and then I can kind of build from there. So it's important to not, if the first thing isn't working, don't despair. There's other resources you can try. And specifically like Lewis, like Lewis Serrano, right? I was just
Yeah.
talking to him yesterday, and he's used, he does a lot of learning through large language models, and he was telling me that he'll ask the same question a bunch of different models, and he'll see what the responses are, and he'll use that as his way of sort of generating different ways to understand the same topic, and he's a big proponent of that, and I think it's a great idea. Is Regardless of where you get it, just make sure you get exposed to a wide variety of ways to talk about whatever you need to learn.
I mean, that's so true. That will also clear up your concepts. Once if you can explain and you have so much of exposure, you
Yeah.
just know that what works for you and maybe what doesn't work for you. And like you said that you were talking to some hiring managers. So what are those some of the skills that I should have if tomorrow I'm going for the job?
Well, they were like talking just basic analytics skills like linear regression. How solid do you feel with linear regression? That's still a very useful analytics tool, even though we've got these large language models. So basic statistics, basic data visualization, basic sort of dimension reduction technique, because we often have these really large data sets with lots of different features and things like that. And is there a way we can make sense of that? And so things like principal component analysis is a way of dealing with these
Yeah.
complicated data sets to reduce them to things that we can manage. I think those are useful skills. Those are all useful skills to have.